So thank you very much and good morning. We've moved the podium to this side so I can ensure that none of you leave during my presentation. First top tip of the morning, always use a black and white photo on your LinkedIn profile because it will really hide tired eyes. But what we're going to cover this morning for my presentation is, so diversity and inclusion is really important to my business, but where do I start? It's a really, really hot topic for so many organisations at this moment in time, and probably every single one of you that's in this room. Is your business reflective of the industry that you operate in and also your local communities in which your offices are situated? There's so many aspects within this topic, but where do I channel my efforts and why? Why do I want to have this impact? How can I have an impact with a minimal budget, which is probably one of the main things that many of you want to hear about. So a lot of the things that we'll talk about this morning are actually free. You can have an impact without breaking the bank, excuse the pun. And of course, what's the end goal? So why are you doing this? Why do you want to invest in diversity and inclusion? Is this something that's just coming from the powers that be that sit on your board or your senior management team? Or actually, is there a real business need for you guys to want to do this? But before we start, I thought I'd just show you a little bit about who Triodos are.
Imagine two banks. Both employ helpful people who deal with your questions, and both are financially sound. At each bank, you can save regularly, earn interest, and of course manage your account online. Only one bank does it differently. This bank only invests in things which are good for both people and the planet. Things like renewable energy, organic farming, and ecological development. This bank invests in businesses that want to make a healthy profit and want to make a positive difference to society. This bank finances those businesses only with money from their depositors and investors. So the money those people save is invested back into the society they live in. It's actually very simple. Both savers and investors help to build a better, more sustainable world. That one bank is us. Follow your heart, use your head. Triodos Bank.
So that is literally our business model in 60 seconds. So what we do is, in terms of our lending and our portfolio, all of the organisations that we lend to are having a positive impact on society, people, the planet, in some way, shape or form. It's as simple as that. But before we move into the diversity and inclusion section itself, no presentation would be complete without a bit of audience participation, which I'm sure you're all really nervous about now I've done that. And I really enjoy putting these slides together, as you can tell by my animations. So quick question by a show of hands. Now, my resourcing advisor is somewhere in this room, so he's not allowed to answer that question wherever he is. So Matt, don't put your hand up, because everyone will be looking to you to see what the answer is. But my only quiz question for you guys this morning is, what is the percentage increase in Triodos Bank UK co-workers in the last 3 years? So percentage-wise, how much do you think we've grown by as a bank? Is it A, 20%, B, 38%, or C, 45%? So raise your hands if you think we've grown by 20% in the last 3 years. Okay, 38. Okay, and 45. Congratulations to the 45% of you. So to put that in actual terms, we're currently a head count in the UK of around about 192. So when I started at the end of 2015, we were around about 105, 110 or so. So we've had phenomenal growth over the last couple of years as a bank. So historically, you would think, great, you're attracting loads of people are coming to work for you, you're a great place to work. Clearly, you must be really diverse as an employer. You must really reflect your industry and your community very, very well. The answer is no, unfortunately. There are some areas that we are very, very good at, and I think one of the things I would urge you guys is to really celebrate what you're very, very good at within your businesses, but really recognise those challenges as well of where you want to focus your efforts. So when I started this, we went and started with 3 main questions in terms of how we wanted to have this impact and how we were going to structure diversity and inclusion for us as a UK business. The first one was, what areas do we want to focus our efforts on? I'm sure we'll all agree around this room that diversity and inclusion is such a broad topic and there are so many different things underneath this umbrella. It can feel a little bit overwhelming from time to time of, well, what do I do? If I focus on this, it means I can't focus on that. And how do I go around doing this? We really wanted to do some analysis of our internal and our external communities because for us as a bank, Matt will agree with me on this, we don't have whizzy and shiny systems for anything and everything. We do live off a lot of Excel spreadsheets. So we really wanted to ensure that even if we didn't have some forms of MI in front of us, we really were going to create a baseline because you do have to start from somewhere no matter where you are in this journey. And then finally, after those two, what initiatives are going to have the greatest impact, both internally within the bank, but also externally. So really thinking about how we can have an impact in society, but also think about the knock-on effects of that. Think about things like your employer brand, your employer of choice, your employee proposition, etc. as well. So what do you want to achieve? Looking at number one, first of all. And for us, coming back to recognizing some of the things we were really good at, through consultation with the HR team and looking at some conversations we had with our senior leaders within the bank, when putting the diversity and inclusion strategy together, our goal was to better reflect our local community and the industry in which we operate. So in order to achieve this, we've broken down our strategy into 5 key areas that we're going to be looking at over the next 3 years, which will run in line with our business strategy. So the first one is gender. So TBUK's current success with regards to gender diversity is very, very good. And I'll share some stats with you around that in a minute. We're very, very good from a gender pay point of view. Now, we are an organisation underneath 250 employees, so technically, we don't have to report on gender pay at this moment in time, but we still take an active approach in wanting to monitor that just to showcase the great work that we do as a business and the stance that we take to gender as well as equal pay. We want to continue to promote progression opportunities for all co-workers across the bank, consistently reviewing our recruitment process, and more recently we've committed to a goal of at least 30% gender representation at either end of the scale across the management, senior and board level for us as well, and that's through signing up to the Women in Finance Charter, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a second. Ethnicity. So for us, our workforce should reflect the local community in which we operate. So Bristol, from a BAME perspective, so black and ethnic minorities, is around about 14-15%. So we really want to ensure that we move progressively to becoming more reflective of Bristol as a city. So by 2021, we aspire to working towards a goal of 10% in the first instance of all co-workers and 5% of our management population coming from the BAME community. The aspiration for us is that by the time we get to 5 years, we will be fully reflective of Bristol as a local ethnic community. Disability for us as well, so we want to look at a lot of accreditations over the next couple of years, and Disability Confident and other accreditations outside of disability are a great way to showcase why you're such a great place to work and your stance towards diversity and inclusion and the impact that can have in terms of the types of talent that you source. And actually Disability Confident is actually a free accreditation, so that is one of the ones that you can look into right now to have an impact that actually isn't going to cost you any money at all, at least at level 1. LGBT, so in over 50 countries, LGBTQ co-workers are not protected against workplace discrimination. So for us, that really was quite a frightening statistic. So we really wanted to ensure that we continue to create a safe environment where everyone feels welcome, everyone feels open to being who they are as an individual, and it's a free and open and safe space to people to have that dialogue should they wish to do so. And the final one is a bit of a collective approach, which we've called inclusive initiatives, because there are so many things that perhaps touch on things outside of those other 4 points, or perhaps touch on all 4 of them. And some of the things that we'll talk about this morning are actually going to showcase all of those 4 ones above. So moving into point 2, looking at the analysis of our community. So for us, we wanted to look internally within the bank as well as externally in terms of the industry as well as Bristol as a community. Now, as I said, at this moment in time, we are quite limited in terms of the information that we can pull from our HR system whilst we're going through a process of implementing a new one. And without the implementation of an ATS at this moment in time, we don't do any form of equal opportunities monitoring, so that's where we're going to be able to create this baseline for us at some point within 2019. But in terms of some of the snapshots that we've got as an organisation of stuff that we can monitor, so overall in the UK, we are 51% female co-workers. 26% of our population are part-time or utilise flexible working in some way, shape or form. Now, What I will say is I will stop on that one, and whilst that is an amazing statistic to have just over a quarter of your population part-time or flexible working in some way, to me the challenge back to the business in that instance is that is not fully reflective of the external community, because a lot of that population are built up of individuals who perhaps have joined us in a full-time role and then may have left the business to, say, go on shared parental leave, paternity or maternity leave, and then want to return to the organisation in a part-time capacity. So whilst that figure is exact, I don't think it's a true reflection, and that's only going to come through promoting flexible working and part-time opportunities at the beginning of your resourcing process to recruit that external talent, rather than looking just internally within your business. We are currently 33% female at our senior management level upwards, which is great because that means we're already achieving that goal that we've committed to after implementing the strategy in January. Like I said, from a gender point of view, it's something that we're already very, very good at, so I want to continue to showcase that as an organisation, because so many times you don't recognise the things that you're already good at, you only focus on the stuff that you're not so good at. So really continue to build those success stories, because that will really, really help with you when you're selling this to your line management population and the rest of the business. We currently have one vacancy in the senior management team, and that is the head of HR role. So if that role is filled by a female candidate, that will take that representation up to 38% for us. This was a really interesting statistic for us. So 17% of our population are under 30, whilst 18% are over 50. So there's a really, really interesting conversation for us to have around skill shortages, harnessing the more experienced co-workers who are further down their career, and how do we go around maintaining their level of knowledge and the great history that they've got, because of course within the next decade or so, a lot of that population will be looking to retire. So we're in a really good place, all of us within this room at this moment in time, that we've got 4 generations within our workforce. So how do we utilise those years of knowledge for the newer generations and really harness and keep that within your business for when they decide to move on? Coming back to the gender diversity side of things, so in terms of our management population as a collective, we are currently 41% female, which I think is a great statistic to have. And last but not least, so 21%, so around about 11% of our co-workers are non-UK nationals. And one of the reasons that we wanted to look at that at this moment in time is because we can't track ethnicity as an organisation because of the lack of an ATS. We really wanted to look at, whilst we're going through the Brexit process, sorry to bring up Brexit again, but while we're going through this process and supporting those EU nationals, it was really interesting for us to see, okay, well, actually what kind of baseline of co-workers that we've got that perhaps aren't UK nationals in the first instance. So some great things in there for us to celebrate when we were looking internally, but what we also wanted to do, as I said, is look externally to see what's happening outside of the 4 walls of the business. So those 2 graphs, which I appreciate might be a little bit disjointed on the screen, the bar chart on the left is taken from the Employment by Sector report from Gov UK, which was released in October of last year. And you can see that's looking at banking, finance and insurance as a whole, which still is predominantly white individuals working within this sector, and that's just under 87.5% of the industry are built up of white individuals. The pie chart on the right-hand side is taken from the Bristol population census from last year, which shows just under 95,000 of individuals fall into that non-white British category within the Bristol area. So Bristol as a whole is around about 14-15% BAME at this moment in time. So bringing that internally, when we were looking at this analysis side of things, so based on those current statistics, the industry itself is actually performing better than Triodos. Ethnic diversity is something that we really, really need to work on. That is a very big challenge that we recognise for us at this moment in time. So based on the current headcount of around about 192 individuals, that means that 24 Triodos co-workers would have to be within that sort of non-white category, and we know that we are nowhere near that at this moment in time. So that's a really, really big focus for us within diversity and inclusion. So number 3, really thinking about what could have the greatest impact. So we've done that baseline, we've done those statistics, we've got the 5 goals that we want to achieve. How are you going to do it? So we've broken that down into 5 different areas, and like I said, there is a lot of information in this, so happy to talk this through later, and I know you'll get the slides as well. So some of the stuff that we're looking at from a gender point of view, we've signed up to the Women in Finance Charter, and also we're going to be looking at the Women in Business Charter as well. For those of us that operate in financial services, the Women in Finance Charter, you should hopefully be aware of it's around businesses within the financial services industry looking to really combat gender inequality, and actually we have a really, really big positive stance in terms of that, with the commitment that we've decided to go with of at least 30% representation of either gender at management level upwards. And you can see down the right-hand column that we can't do everything straight away. So we've really looked at phasing our approach into quarters across 2019 because you just won't have the time to do all of this in one go. Some of the stuff that we're going to be looking to do in-house, so looking at that gender diversity in your vacancies. So as I've said before, really think about how you advertise your opportunities, the language that you use. If you are an organisation that is going to embrace that flexibility, I was having a conversation with a contact of mine who works for Aviva, who is very experienced in the diversity field, and she said to me, not everything has to be a 1 FTE, but even if you are going to advertise something as a 0.6 or a 0.8, it might be that person doesn't want to do Monday to Wednesday or can actually do a 1 FTE, but 8:30 till 5 doesn't work for them as well. So in your advert, it could be something as simple as a statement that says, we are an organisation that embraces equality and diversity and flexibility. Should you wish to discuss flexible working in any way, shape or form with regards to your application, please let us know within that process. Because someone may think, well, actually, I've got commitments. I need to do school drop-off or school pick-up, so actually coming in at doing 8 till 4:30 works a lot better for me rather than doing 8:30 till 5. So it's just those small little things of, outside of the box that can really, really help when it comes to attracting talent. From an ethnicity point of view, a lot of this stuff is going to be free for us. We are looking at partnering with UE as an organisation who are trialling a mentoring scheme for their BAME students. Now, for us at this moment in time, we don't have a graduate scheme because of our size, but the stance that we've taken with this is really to think about, okay, those individuals need support in terms of getting into an industry, getting a job after they graduate, but also thinking about the knock-on effect that could potentially have, because we don't know what their parents do for a living, we don't know what the rest of their social circle does, and I think it's still about how you have that external connection with these communities, even outside of recruiting for a vacancy itself. The next two about Black Women Let Loose and our annual meeting. So we have an annual meeting every year, which is held actually later this month, and we really try and promote diversity where we can do within all of the events that we hold, in terms of the panels that we have, whether that's from a gender, from a disability, from an ethnicity point of view. So at our annual meeting this year, we have June Sarpong, who is going to sit on one of our panels, who's going to talk about her new book, which is called Diversify, which is a very, very interesting read, actually, if any of you are interested in diversity. I personally remember June Sarpong from when she used to promote T4, so I was very excited that I'm going to get to meet her in a couple of weeks. From a disability point of view, again, we've talked about the accreditation side of things, and the Disability Confident at level 1 is something that is completely free. There is a small fee when you start to look at accreditation at level 2 and 3, but the business can really support you with that. And from an LGBT point of view, so as you know, Bristol Pride takes place every year in the summer, and it's their 10-year anniversary this year. We're looking at what part of Pride could we get involved in if we want to. There are so many things that happen across that fortnight period with Bristol Pride, and actually, where is that connection between some of the events that they're holding and what Triodos stands for as an organisation? So we're looking at, could we get involved with perhaps the film festival side of things, which is held at the Watershed, which is one of our customers, because then there's that continuing connection between them and Triodos, and that's how I can rationalise a bit of investment into showcasing who we are. Again, we're looking at a Stonewall accreditation, and for those of you that may have heard of this, there is a LGBT networking group across Bristol known as Proud Bristol, which started maybe about a year and a half or so ago, and it's organisations of any size, any sector that get together sort of once every 6-8 weeks or a quarter or something like that, and it's a real networking opportunity for individuals that understand what's happening internally within organisations, some of the challenges they're facing, very similar to the room that we've got today, so that people can sit there, get to know each other and really come together and think about what people are working on. And point 5, the inclusive initiatives, and this is some of the stuff that I really want to touch on very briefly. So we started by introducing a diversity and inclusion policy. That's absolutely free, that's implemented, and then we moved on in terms of putting the strategy together. We're looking at a lot of unconscious bias training, equality and diversity, which we are going to outsource that and bring someone in to do that. So that is going to incur a small fee for us. But what is going to be free is we are looking at implementing recruitment training for all managers within the business on the types of questions to ask, their commitment to diversity and making sure that they've completed unconscious bias training before they're allowed to interview. And that's something that we're exploring with our L&D department at the moment. Continuing to raise our mental health awareness. We are very good as an organisation. We've got about 17 mental health first aiders at the moment. So not everything has to be focused into a particular box. You can think about what's going to continue to have the greatest impact through something as simple as investment into mental health. One of the main areas that I wanted to talk about actually was our Changemakers programme. So in terms of continuing to have that connection with your external communities, we recognise that majority of our business model is very much from a CSR point of view. So how do we continue to have our co-workers that perhaps don't operate in a customer-facing role to have that connection to external communities? So once every 18 months, we partner with 2 local charities, and we partner with them for a period, as I say, of 18 months on a whole host of things of what they want as a business. That could be something as simple as renovation and painting a fence, or that could be something a little bit more strategic, finance, recruitment training, CV and cover letter. So we've done 2 cycles of that. We're currently in cycle 2 at the moment. In cycle 1, we worked with Young Bristol and Bristol Drugs Project. And in this round, we are working with 1625, and we are also working with the Avon Wildlife Trust as well. And those are some great external partnerships which help continue your internal population to feel committed and still continue to have that connection to your external communities. So for all of this, where does this lead for us? You know, you have to have an end goal. What is it that you want to achieve? And at this moment in time, we don't have an ATS until later this year. So we want to continue to be a workforce of at least as diverse as our competitors within the industry, and really hardwire diversity in terms of what we do, making it a focus point for everyone in Triodos, and not just in the recruitment process. We want this to be open dialogue topics, whatever role you do within the bank. So by the time we get to 2021, as I say, we've committed to 2 goals. We're going to continue to look at gender and also black and ethnic minorities in the first instance. And what we're going to look at is a 50% goal for all co-workers and at least a 50% goal at management level upwards. And from a BAME point of view, we are looking at 10% of our co-worker population as a whole to be reflective of that community, and 5% from a management population as well. So my final top tips for you in terms of key actions are, like I said earlier, review your current situation. So what do you want to focus on? What are the main areas that you want to have an impact on? Make sure you do your analysis, because then you'll have some form of starting point for you guys to then present back to your senior leaders and the rest of the team, and really phase that approach. It's not the thing that's going to change overnight. This is going to take time. This is going to continue long after the end of this 3-year strategy for us. Be really honest. I know it sounds really simple, but it's something that we're not very good at sometimes as an organisation. So don't do something just for the sake of doing it. Don't think, well, diversity is a really hot topic or it's a buzzword, so therefore we have to invest into it, because otherwise you're not going to get that buy-in if you're not bought in yourself. And really celebrate that success. You know, we've talked about the stuff that we're really good at from a gender point of view, but we recognise those challenges of perhaps where we really need to focus our efforts on, like ethnicity. And finally, not everything costs money. Some of this stuff you can do in-house, some of this stuff you can do free, and I'm here all day if you have any questions on regards to some of the stuff that we've done. Many of your initiatives can be run in-house, and really think about the wider impact that some of this stuff can have on your employer brands and the type of talent that you're going to be searching for going forward. Thank you very much.